Well, I did it. I actually did crack the bumper. Uh, so today's video is my first YouTube post. I'm going to talk about how to repair a cracked front bumper. So you don't have to go shell out some money to get a new one. Bumper repair kits here in Canada are about 30 bucks. We're using the Bondo brand. I'll get into that in a second. But to get the front bumper off this car is actually not that bad. You start off by taking off these 8 screws along the bottom, all the way around the bottom of the bumper. Then you move on to the top. You've got 4 screws along the top, right above the grill. You'll see it as soon as you actually pop the hood. You'll see them just about there. And if you need video guides on how to take the bumper off, there's plenty on YouTube. So I didn't go too much into detail about that, but once you've got those 4 off, you actually have to take off a couple of screws in the wheel well. And right at the top by the headlight, there's 2 screws on both sides, which you'll also have to take off at the top. Once you've got those off, you're pretty much set to take the bumper off as one big piece, but be careful not to just yank it off because you do have the fog lights. And if your fog lights are actually still plugged in and you pull it off, you may damage some connectors or the bulbs. So just pull it off a little bit and reach down and pull the fog lights off. So in my case, I have them just taped off here for now. But yeah, once you take the fog lights out, yeah, you can see the inside of your bumper. So mine cracked right along the bottom here, quite a bit of it, and went all the way around to the top on the inside of the black grille. So I decided I'm going to try repairing it instead of buying a new bumper altogether. So I did go out and buy a bumper repair kit by Bondo. So you can pick this up at Canadian Tire for about $34. Comes with pretty much everything you need, so I'm going to show you exactly what it comes with and basically go step by step on how to repair this. So to begin, it comes with 2 of each. So 2 pieces of 80 grit sandpaper, 2 pieces of 180 grit sandpaper, 2 adhesion promoters, 2 fillers and hardeners, and then 1 of these spreading applicator sticks that you get with it. Fairly straightforward. I think the kit describes everything you need to do, but I feel like maybe some confusion sometimes on how to get this area prepped. So what I decided to do was just make a video on it. Basically, I started off by cleaning off the area. So I cleaned the outside of the bumper where the crack is, the inside of the bumper where the crack is, and I actually went just past it about another couple inches on each side so that no dirt would come around into the area which I'm working in. So what I did was I actually hit it with soap and water first, dried it off just to get all the dirt and grease off. And then I also hit it with some brake cleaner. Advantage of this is that it does get rid of oils and residues quite quickly, and it does dry instantly, so the advantage is that you don't really leave anything behind. But the other really good thing about this is that if there's any grease from your fingers, because you know your skin oils and this and that are on the bumper, you can sort of cause some issues with the adhesion of all of this stuff. So it's best to hit it with some brake cleaner, and obviously wipe it off with some microfiber cloth before you begin. And then what you want to start with is some 80 grit sandpaper. Now my area that I'm working in is sort of narrow, as you can tell. Yours might not be, depending on where your bumper broke. So my area was quite a bit difficult to actually get the sandpaper on this side and this side of the bumper, but somehow I did. So I used the 80 grit sandpaper, folded it so that I would hit both sides while I'm working, and especially the crease where the bumper folds over. I started with that. Then I moved along I wiped it off, obviously get all the dust off again, and then I started with 180 grit sandpaper. Once you do that, you actually wipe off again with a microfiber towel and some brake cleaner and blow off all the dust so that nothing gets back in the area you're working in. Then I hit it with some adhesion promoter that also comes part of the kit. The advantage of this just comes in a little sponge. It's a wet sponge. You can apply it both on the outside and the inside actually. And then you just let it sit for about 10 minutes. The adhesion promoter, some sort of liquid inside a sponge. I guess it's supposed to help with once you place the hardener and filler on. It's supposed to assist with how strong it gets in the bond. Then I use some Gorilla Tape. This Gorilla Tape here, black Gorilla Tape, I masked off the outside where I'm not working yet, both sides and all the way around. The Gorilla Tape helps with holding the pieces together so that they're uniform, and the crack is sort of seamless when you're running your fingers over it. And also when you're actually placing the hardener, the Bondo all over, it doesn't actually leak all the way through and just come out of the crack. It actually stays inside, so the tape really helps with that. So maybe I will show you on the outside as well and how I did it, but what you do then after that is actually take the hardener and the filler. There's 2 of each, so plenty for you to use. You actually empty both of these onto one non-porous surface. So I use some laminate wood, and don't use regular wood because it is porous, so it will absorb whatever you empty out. So you empty out 1 filler and 1 hardener onto your non-porous surface, and then you use this little spatula thing to knead it together. The filler is black, the hardener is white, so once you mix them up it actually turns gray, and don't start using it until you actually get to this gray color, this uniform gray. You keep kneading it, so you kind of scoop over, knead up, scoop over, and once you've got it kneaded and it turns gray like that, it's pretty much ready to use. So you have to let the adhesion promoter sit for about 10 minutes anyway, so in that time you can get this all mixed up. After it's mixed, you have about maybe less than 10 minutes to actually use it, because it gets hard, as you can tell, very hard in about 10 minutes, and then it becomes pretty much useless. So before you start actually emptying these out, make sure you're ready to use actually use it on the surface you're trying to fix. So once you've actually done that, it does come with, the kit does come with these little mesh pieces. Now, quite a bit of it. So the advantage is that mesh helps strengthen the area that you're working in. So what you can do is take just a little bit, spread it along with a very thin layer to begin. You have to work in thin layers because you don't want any pinholes and air going in. So spread a very thin layer across the crack. Take your wire mesh, as you can see mine, which I'll cut along this side at the end, but take your wire mesh and place it right along the crack, just in the sections that you need. Go across and just outside the cracked area by about a few centimeters, so mine stops about there. I let my mesh go up till here, and once you've got your mesh in place, you can actually press it in so that the filler actually comes through the mesh. And what that does is the mesh now sinks in, and then you can take another scoop of the filler and start spreading it along. Once you have about 3 layers of the filler on, you're pretty much set to leave it. It does harden in about 30 minutes. You should leave it for a little bit longer, I would say, before you sand or start to mess around with it. But once you've gotten to that point, like I am here, I actually took off the tape so I could see where I may have missed some spots. But this is my first time using it, so I'm just telling you guys based on my experience that this stuff hardens quite quickly. So I have a crack on this side as well, as you can pretty much tell. I did have, instead of using more of this stuff, I want to keep it for the outside. I ended up using for the bottom area, which is not so much visible. It's going to be underneath the car, and I do have a front lip anyways. I used some plastic weld by JB. Now this stuff is quite good actually. It's just more like a clay, so it comes in a little tube like this. You can actually cut off as much as you need. You need it in your hands, just like Play-Doh. And the outside of the clay is blue, the inside is white. Once you have done that, and it's one uniform color again, you can actually spread it along where you need to use it. So in my case, I filled up this crack from the inside, and now it's quite hard actually. It's been about 45 minutes to an hour, and it's already very hard. Like I can't push my nail into it, and it's very rigid. So as with all JB Weld and Bondo products, this stuff looks like it's pretty promising. So I'm gonna cut off this mesh now and flip the bumper over, and I can show you exactly how I'm gonna start on the outside. And we'll be back once I cut this mesh off and I actually flip the bumper over, so I can show you how bad the crack is on the outside itself. Alright, so we're back. I flipped over the bumper. As you can tell, I'm gonna start sanding it. I just tried to see if the 180 would work directly, but I think I'll have to start with 80 grit straight. So some of the filler did come through, but that's okay because it did fill the crack fairly well. As you can tell, my crack starts all the way at the edge. It comes all the way around to the bottom here, and did spread some all along there as well. So I'm going to sand this whole area down, mix up some putty, and I'll be back. But I guess first I'm just going to sand it, and then I'll show you. Okay, so I'm done. It's the 80 grit sandpaper. It does help quite a bit to take off most of the paint. You can't put the body filler directly on paint. It won't cure just as well as it should. So they ask you to sand off the area you're working in. So I did use the 80 grit. I'm going to hit it with some brake cleaners to get off all this residue. But I think the best part is that the 80 grit is just the right amount of strength to take off the clear coat and paint off the area. So I'm just going to wipe this off and see. Yeah, that looks pretty good, and I think I've got most of the area. So I did hit it all along the crack and all the way up here. Also hit it down here. I'm going to do one side at a time, so I'm trying to work on just the top down to here first. Then I'm going to flip the bumper over and then work along the bottom where it did crack as well. But first, just do the visible area so that it does look half a lot better. What I'm actually thinking of doing is filling in the crack with a very thin layer first. I'm not going to use mesh on this side because I put the mesh on the inside anyways, so it should be strong enough. As you can tell, it's moving as one piece, so that's good. So once I get the filler on here, it should be all uniform so the crack doesn't show. I did miss a little bit back here, so it didn't, the filler didn't come all the way up to here. So I guess when I'm filling it in from the outside where I'm right now, you should be able to fill it in. I'm going to touch up this area a little bit more with sandpaper. And yeah, so I'll be back once I'm done with the 180 grit. I found a better way to put the bumper. I use this little crate on top of my table so I can center the bumper's weight along the strongest area, which is right here. That allowed me to reach, I guess, down the underside as well, which I'm going to start sanding now. But here's how it looks after 80 grit. So I think I got most of the paint off around the crack. Maybe I'll touch up a little bit more here, but it looks pretty good so far. I have to sand off this area so I can actually use the putty all the way down till here where the crack ends. So I'm going to start sanding the bottom and I'll be back with how that looks. Okay, so we're back and I've sanded off all the area that I'm going to be putting the filler on. So now one thing I will say is that this is the most crucial step in the sense that if you do not sand enough or you don't sand at all, which I would highly not suggest, it's not going to work. The filler is just not going to stick to anything properly. So take your time, sand around the crack. So as you can tell, the crack is all here, but I did sand some down here and up here and just past the crack so that once I'm spreading on the filler, it doesn't, it has more area to stick to. So I have done this side all the way through. The crack stops just about here, and I've gone up till here. And this part I've gone all the way through, and now also because of the sanding I've been able to sort of flush out the little bridge for the most part. Now the filler will do the majority of that, but yeah, so now I'm going to start using the adhesion promoter, but I'm going to start cleaning the area first actually. So I'm going to hit it with my brake cleaner. Oh, I dropped my towel, but hit it with my brake cleaner so that all the area that I'm working is dust free and clean. Some of you be like, why are you using your brake cleaner? Brake cleaner does work, and it's pretty good at removing all the stuff. So if you have degreaser, use it. Why not? Degreaser works really well too, but degreaser doesn't dry as fast as brake cleaner does, so that's why I use it. And brake cleaner is fairly strong overall, so I mean, it has a very strong smell especially. So I'm gonna hit it a couple times just so that this whole area is nice and clean. You will need to get either sprayable touch-up paint or get it done professionally. I probably will get this area done just because it is a fairly large area. I don't anticipate using touch-up paint on this area. I don't think it will come out as clean as I want it, so I'm just gonna get the bumper done, fixed up here, paint blended, and I'll just get the bottom fixed so that once my lip is on, this area is nice and clean as well. So the bumper will pretty much be ready for that once I'm done prepping it. So yeah, next step going to be cleaning this up a little bit more, and then I'm gonna start putting on the adhesion promoter, and so I'll be back once I'm doing that part. So here I'm using the adhesion promoter. Like I said, it comes in a little sponge that's wet, and so just wipe it along the area that you're going to be applying your filler to. Just nicely, liberally applied, I guess. I can't use it anyways, so just use up as much as you can. And once we've gotten that all set up, we just let it dry for about 10 minutes. So rather than boring you guys for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to start mixing up my filler with the hardener that it comes with, and I'll show you the consistency once it's all mixed up. I just wanted to share that this applicator tool that comes with the kit, really good advantage of this stuff is that one, it has a really nice edge. It's not rough, but it's sharp enough to spread stuff and scoop stuff fairly well. But the other thing is, this stuff actually, if you've got a mess like this and you're trying to reuse it, it does actually peel off fairly well. So let me get this all on camera. I mean, what more can you ask for? It comes off so easily. And now it's pretty much ready to use again. That's pretty good. So yeah, I'm gonna start, like I said, I'm gonna start putting the adhesion promoter, and I'm gonna mix up my hardener and filler, and I'll be back. Okay, so I'm trying to mix up this hardener and filler. So as you can tell, white and sort of dark gray. You mix it up, scoop, knead over, scoop, knead over. So I'm going to do this quickly because this stuff hardens quite fast. I'm going to be back. Alright, so I got it all mixed up, as you can tell, uniform gray, and now I'm going to start spreading it. So you take a little bit on the edge of your applicator tool, and yeah, just start spreading it along the crack. Obviously, because I'm trying to do this while holding the camera, it's not going to be as good, but I'm going to set the camera down and start spreading this on, and I'll be back. Progress report. I have filled it all up. Yeah, obviously I went past the area where the crack is. I put on my gloves because the stuff is a mess on your fingers. But get it as smooth as possible. It doesn't have to be perfect right now because you will sand it, but as smooth as possible so there's less sanding. As you can tell, the crack is here, but I filled it up so that once I sand it out, it'll be pretty much naked to the eye. And I'm gonna let this sit for about 45 minutes to an hour, as it is a little bit cooler today. So I'm gonna let it sit for a little bit longer than they advised. So I'll be back once I see this all hardened and ready for sanding. So I'll be back on that one. Okay, so I'm back. It's the next day. I didn't get a chance to continue, but I'm back, and I started sanding down the area with 80 grit. So what I ended up doing was, instead of doing most of it by hand, I did have one of these I guess vibrating sanders. So let me just turn off this fan here. So I started sanding off the area as much as I could with the sander to get it as smooth as possible, but still left a little bit excess so that the crack line doesn't show. I mean, just barely, but I mean, you shouldn't be able to see any bumps. I still have one little spot here that I need to touch up, but for the most part, the inside is done, the visible side. I do have to do the bottom of the bumper still, so as you can tell, this is how it is when it's fully hardened and very difficult to take off. So progress report, it looks to be going well, and I think if I hit this now with the 180 and then the 320 to get it as smooth as possible so that the transition from the bumper onto the actual filler is seamless. Pretty much ready for paint, which I've also ordered because I decided to touch it up at home. I think we should be fairly good to go. I mean, let's take a look at the car. I mean, it looks good in stealth mode, huh? I actually like it like this. Maybe I'll just leave the bumper off. Nah, I'm just kidding. No, we're gonna keep the bumper off. But yeah, I mean, progress looks good. Okay, so the bottom side is also done. I have sanded off a lot of it, but not all of it. I want to keep the bottom stronger, so I didn't sand off nearly as much as I did on the top. The reason being, the bottom, I mean, I have to put the lip back on, and again, like, I want to keep this as strong as possible, so A good thing it is done on both sides, so through the inside it is plastic repaired and on the outside. So one thing I will say is that when you're sanding, do go past the area you filled, because when you're laying your primer, you want to make it as smooth as possible. So you want to go past, obviously, on both sides, so that the transition is as smooth as possible. So that same pattern or the same process, I did the same thing on the inside. So I went just past the area where it filled all sides, so even on this side. And I did have a scratch here as well, so I ended up sanding it down so that I can fix it as well. But overall, quite happy with how it came out. Fingers crossed my painting skills are just as helpful. But I have ordered primer. The paint color for this car is jet black, so it's 668. I've ordered a can of that and also a can of clear coat, so that it does get the same sort of gloss finish as the rest of the bumper. The advantage of putting on primer before you paint is that the paint adheres a lot better. You don't want to go straight to paint on this, as the paint might not even stick to this directly. Even on the box it is advised to first hit it with primer. So I ordered black primer actually, so that actually the paint would be easier, because the painting process on gray primer might be a little bit more difficult for a beginner like me. So I ordered black primer, which my local body shop suggested to use instead. So now I'm gonna go back with 320, or sorry, 180 first, and then 320. And instead of doing it with the machine, I'm gonna put this away now. I'm gonna start doing it by hand, so that I take off as minimal amount as I need to. I don't want to take off too much, because I want to leave as much as I can so that it stays as solid as possible. I think the kit overall comes with pretty much everything you need to do all of this. It doesn't come with 320 grit sandpaper, but when I spoke to the body shop person, they advised that hit it with 320 before you hit it with sandable primer. For my case, I got black primer, which then you try and sand down a little bit more after you put on, and then hit it with the actual black paint. So once I'm ready for that, I think the paint will arrive tomorrow. I will follow up with another video. Okay, progress report. It's all done with now 180 and 320, so it's super smooth. You barely even feel the transition. That's what I wanted. I might touch up this part here, but I think for the most part it's pretty good. I don't have any bumps or anything. I did clean it off again with brake cleaner to get all the dust off, but get a better angle for you guys here. How's that? Looks pretty good. I think overall I'm pretty happy with the results. One thing I will say is I'm learning as well how at the same time. So just be careful with your sandpaper. Don't go too far like I did. Like I touched the edge here, right there, by accident. So I will need to likely hit that with paint again. But yeah, just be careful when you're doing it. I mean, for the most part, I intend on touching up a lot of the spots. I do have brushable touch-up paint, but I'd rather use a spray on to get a more uniform finish. The trick to get this curved edge right is to not use pressure. I guess for most of the sanding, you really shouldn't be using pressure, because you want the sandpaper to do the work, so you get a really nice even finish. But I can show you guys how to get that curve really nice. So the area which you want to touch up with sanding is you want to hold your sandpaper on a curve like this. So using your fingers for pressure, but very light, and just glide your fingers back and forth. You don't want to put downwards pressure. You want to just rest your hand and glide your hand back and forth. That's how you get a very smooth and seamless transition. The other thing is you get a nice curve, just like the actual bumper. And that may apply to you or may not, but I mean, it really depends on where yours cracked. Mine happened to crack in a very messed up, and again, we'll go over this before I hit it with primer. So that'll be part of my next video where I hit it with primer, paint, and clear coat. So stay tuned for that. I think the paint and primer should be here tomorrow, if not the day after the latest. So once I have that, we can finally start hitting this with paint. And I do have one other spot to touch anyways, in this edge here. Not even sure how this happened. I mean, it's just disgusting, but we'll touch up that spot as well. And I think I might need to sand this because it is like little grooves, so it may have been something flying up or whatever, but I will touch that up as well while I'm at it. And I want to get this bumper nice prepped up before I put it for the next video. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you next time.